Okay, well, yesterday's share went on for 50 minutes. Not one of you said boo. I didn't realize how the time was flying. I Pasha didn't realize, which I guess is a good sign. But you could have told me, Rabbi, I like the fact that you love the sound of your own voice, but you got to give us a little time myself. But okay, let's go. We're going to continue. I'll put your reading inside. Okay. I put up on the page. I put up by you guys. Now you have 3 pages, 3 PDFs. One is the Rebbe's Ha'orah at the back of the Slichas. The other is the Sikha from the Rebbe from Tavshin Yud about how to write a pidyon. And the third is Meir, he says, Menachem Lezer Poshet sent me the tshuva from the Maribei Rav. It's exactly 6 lines long. The ganze Maise. I just want to tell you what he says. It's even edeler than what we were saying yesterday. The way I said it yesterday was that you're not davening to the malach, you're asking the malach to daven for you. So Menachem Lezer told me that's not what it says in the Ha'orah, and he was right. In the Ha'orah, it doesn't say that you're asking the malach to daven for you. You're asking the malach delivers the tefillas to Meibishter. And as he said, the Gemara says, Chazal say, that's a klal. All of our tefillas, oila l'mayla, through the malachim. And in Chassidus, there's a very big deal made about this, that the malachim, that mechol keiser, keishik sorim lekoinoi mitfaleseim shel Yisrael, which means that the malachim, the gof of leinu, menashik lein, they take our tefillas, they hug them, they kiss them, and they refine them. So when you're saying machnise rachmim, you're not asking the malach to daven on your behalf. You're asking the malach to bring your tefillas up. That's what it says in the Ha'orah, in the Slichas, based on a maimah from Teira Eir, where the Koyachol that Tzemach Tzedek took back what he writes over here. That's number 1. And the Maribei Rav, Maribei Bruna says, no chabit haleideler. He says, imagine a person comes into a melech, and he's poshet ashamed to look at his face. Ashamed to cook him upon him. So in the king's room, there were other people. So he turns to those other people and talks to them, not because he's talking to them. He's embarrassed, look the king in the face. So he looks at those others, and he speaks to them as if he's talking to them. But he knows, and they knows, and the melech knows that he means the melech. This is doch edeler. The whole tshuva is 5 lines. And by the way, in that tshuva, he doesn't only mention machniset, what's the lashon bayos? Midas Rachamim. He mentions Machnise Rachamim that I mentioned, and he also mentions the Slichas of Erev Rosh Hashanah, No Kol Mida Nechoine. He mentions 3 different tefillas where it looks like we're talking to the Midas, looking to the Malachim. Imam says a very short little tshuva, and this is his ma'ineh, this is his hesber, that you're standing in front of the king, but you're poshet embarrassed to speak to the king directly, so you speak to the Sorim, and everybody knows that you mean the Melech. That's a good edel avot. That's Shastruas Marif Simerei Shayin Hey, which people used to write in Pedyenis. If he was like a heter to go to a Rebbe. So I'm just clarifying all the things that we discussed and giving fine language. I'm refining the language because I wasn't, so I Pasha didn't look inside. I was not edel enough in the way I presented it. So I'm repeating Pasha what says in those papers. Again, you don't have to believe one word I say. Go to the page where you have the sheets. Open up the PDFs. You don't have to download them, and you can read inside the Ha'orah of the Rebbe on the bottom of the Minhagim of Slichas, and then of course the Tshuvas Mariv itself, and then the Sikha from Tavshin Yud. It's good to read these Sikhas. I marvel at it. The Rebbe wasn't even Rebbe. It was 2 months at the Friedrich Rebbe's Estalkus. That Hera everybody follows. To me, it's interesting. The many Heras the Rebbe gave, people just don't listen to. This Hera that the Rebbe wrote and said before he was officially Rebbe, Allah folgen. And I believe because at that time, the bittul to the Rebbe was so total. In other words, Chassidim were so desperate to have a Rebbe that the bittul to the Rebbe was so total, the Rebbe would tell them to stand on their heads, they would stand on their heads. To me, it's interesting that this Hayra, Hamalaga folk, and it was Beis Iyar Tavshin Yud. You find the Lubavitcher today who writes in his pidyon, Rachem Rabim, Onu Le'eder Alai Rachem Rabim, Mikeir HaRachamim, Keir HaRachamim, V'chasadim Amitim. Or, find someone today who writes an opinion, Commissioner Kosav Shas Chuvas Mariv. Nobody does it. Because the Rebbe said not to do it. To me, this is a fascinating thing. Anyway, I wanted to repeat this and to clarify this, and of course to thank our Goan for the source information. Does anybody want to say anything on this, or otherwise we're moving on? Go ahead. You want to say something? Menachem Mendel, you want to say something?
I mean, maybe it's such an easy haydah. It's not like a challenging haydah.
I get it. But people don't like to change. You know what bothers me? A minig that so many people refuse to do, and I don't want to get into this. The Rebbe says in the back of the Tilm to say all the Kadeshim. If there's no chiyuv, you say all the Kadeshim. It's a letter from the Rebbe to Zalman Duchman, Tavshin Tezvav. It's printed in the back of the Tilm. The Rebbe put it in the back of the Tilm. Zalman Duchman didn't put it in the back of the Tilm. And so many people don't want to do it. What's the raya? Why don't want to do it? The Rebbe didn't do it. Excuses she'en kamayu. And I realize that people, when they have a path to get them to change, they push it. This is what they're used to. But that's what they're used to. And since they, for whatever reasons, didn't adopt this minig, you can't get them to budge from it. This, in other words, I don't think easy or hard is a criteria. It's a bittel. It's a bittel. It's a bittel. I was talking to my students yesterday, to a different group of people, about the story of Hurrah. Now, I wasn't there, and there's no tape of it. But again, there's a machlekes and mitzias. But some people say that when the Rebbe said Hurrah, the oil mut noch gesagt. Hurrah! Everybody said after the Rebbe 3 times, Hurrah! They knew that this is how they have to react. No? 10 years later, Shavuos Tov Chav Gimel, the famous Maaseh, where the Rebbe spoke about a siyach to say L'chaim for Russian Jews, no one said L'chaim. The difference between these 2 reactions is the difference in these 2 stories. I believe that there was a bittel in the Erste Yaren that was pushed so strong. And the bittel was rooted on one level in desire for the Rebbe to be Makabel the Nesiyas, and on a different level from the kirv of the Rebbe to Chassidim. And I think, okay, I'm not saying anything more. I mean, they don't push me. Ich habe gesagt meins, ich habe schon geredet zu viel. I don't think easy or hard is easy or hard. Anytime you ask a person to change anything, it's heipach tiveh. Okay, mitonish reden. You're right, I shouldn't have said anything. Okay, anybody else want to say anything that's not controversial, or controversial in another way? Okay, so I want to give a hakdama to...
What's this thing that you said about the Hillim? That you're supposed to say Kaddish like everything, or just Shabbos Nevarchim, I'm guessing.
If you open up the Lubavitcher Tillim and go to the last page, the last page is going to be a chart of how to say Tillim and Elul. Turn back 1 page before that. 1 page before, there's a long letter, 3 pages long, from the Rebbe to Reb Zalman Duchman, written in 1955, where Reb Zalman Duchman asks the Rebbe, what do you do if there's no chiyuv, about Kaddish Yosem and Kaddish Terabona and all the rest? And the Rebbe has a whole pilpul in Nigla, whole pilpul with different shitas. And at the end, there's a paragraph that begins with the word Hamuram. Hamuram Mikolana. And the Rebbe says, my conclusion is that all the Kadeshim are part of Mitzvas Hatefilla. So if you're davening with a minyan, and there's no chiyuv, somebody has to say all the Kaddish Yosams and all the Kaddish Terabonans. And it's a fact. If you have people in a room who don't have parents, and you ask them to say a Kaddish Yosem, they won't do it. They won't do it. And they'll give you 50 excuses why the Rebbe didn't mean it. The Rebbe wrote a letter, published it himself in the back of the Tillim, and he didn't mean it.
If you do have parents, then you don't say it. Right?
Obviously, you have to get that permission. If you get that permission, the Rebbe says even take Kaddish then also. Which is even, you have to get the permission, maybe you don't do it. But did you have Ovda? I used to get so upset about it. I couldn't understand it. The Rebbe wrote something befedish. He didn't mean it. Why didn't he mean it? Excuses. And this, everybody does. 1 siche that he said in Tov Shin Yud 2 months after the Friedrich Rebbe's Estalkus. Alle Folgen. Anyway, I'm boiling now, not in a pot of hot water, in a pot of hot oil. So I don't want to fry. Let's leave this alone. Okay, but you asked me, it deserves an answer, and I answered you. You do me a favor, look in the back of the Tillim and see what's written there. And you'll be shocked how people who, everything they do, they follow the Rebbe. When it comes to this, they don't want to, I don't know.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk? Anybody else want to say anything? I mean, I'm a Fabreng join. Okay, I want to move on to this. Again, if you have something to say, don't be afraid to speak. I say to my students, in class I bark and I don't bite. And on the computer I can't even bark. So remember, every single one of you is sitting right in front of me. There's no table, there's no closer and farther. Everyone's sitting right next to me. Okay. I'm gonna say. There's a Maimed and Reisha in test. I'm just giving you a Maramokim because Maramokim are good. Okay, anyway. I used to own Sfarim, and then I had a gift that's called children. Now I don't own Sfarim anymore. There's a Maimed and Ayin Test. My Ayin Test is missing, which means one of my boys has it. So I'm not going to go get up in the shul, go look for it. If someone wants the Moker, I will go and get it for you, and I'll tell it to you. There's a Maimed and Ayin Test, Tafresh Ayin Test, where the Rebbe Rashab explains the Inyan of Nikudes al Pikabola. The Inyan of Nikudes al Pikabola. Nekudes is a ganze Welt, you should know. The Nekudes are a ganze Welt. There's a letter from the Rebbe, first of all, a long letter from the Rebbe, which talks about the Trop, about the Taimei Akriya. But if I'm not mistaken, he mentions the Nekudes as well. That all of these things are halacha l'meisha misina. The letters, the shapes of the letters, and there's a whole controversy about Ksav Ashuri and Ksav Ivri, which the Rebbe talked about also. The letters are halacha l'meisha misina. The tagim, the crowns that the Sefer writes top of the letters, are halacha l'meisha mithinai. The nekudes are halacha l'meisha mithinai, and the taimim, the trop, are halacha l'meisha mithinai. It's based on a pardes. And like I said, there's a long letter from the Rebbe specifically about the taimim, about the trop, but I believe he mentions other things as well. This is called in the language of Kabbalah tante. Tante is taimim, nekudes, Tagim, Oisias, from the top down. Tes is Taimim, Trop. Nun is Nekudes. Tov is Tagim, and Aleph is Oisias. 4 levels. What's the pshat of these 4 levels? The pshat of these 4 levels is that Torah has 4 madregas. The lowest madrega of Torah is called the Oisias, the letters. And the Oisias are called Mirubois, they're square. Now, square Oisias they're not a cube. They don't have 3 dimensions. They have 2 dimensions. A Sefer is flat. It's a piece of paper. But every os has to have 2 directions, like this. Yeah? A yud is also 2 directions, certainly in halacha, but in pnimius it's considered in a kuda. Every other os has to be vertically and horizontally, across and down. Horizontally and vertically, okay? It's called meruba. They take up space. Philosophically, spiritually, for those who have it's not the pshat they take up space. They create space. Every os stretches this way, and creates a space for itself. And it's a metzias. Every os is separated. The os is not allowed to be touching. Mukuf gevil. It's not allowed to be chok teiches. Every os is its own metzias. It stretches out vertically and horizontally and creates for itself a space. Spiritually, what that means is that the oisius exist in a madrega of mokum. 2 dimensions. And like I like to say always, the aces of a Sefer Torah have only 2 dimensions. The 3rd dimension of the aces of a Sefer Torah, this is us. When we do the mitzvahs, when we follow the aces of Torah, we're the 3rd dimension. Higher than the aces is called tagim. Tagim are lines, crowns, lines. Tagim are 1 dimension. There's a erech b'li rechev. They have a length from top to bottom and they have no width. Now, of course, technically, there's no such thing as anything that exists that doesn't have a width. But in Higoyin, the inyan of a tag is 1 dimension. So the oisias have 2 dimensions, this way and this way. The tagim have only 1 dimension, this way. Okay? So the Gemara tells a story that Moshe Rabbeinu found the Eibishter writing the tagim. Moshe Rabbeinu found the Eibishter writing the tagim. And the Eibishter tells Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm skipping the Arichas HaSipur, give me a bracha. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Eibishter, you don't read my brachas. Klum eved neisnim kavod l'Rabbi, shalom l'Rav. A Talmud, a slave doesn't greet his master. And he says, no, give me a bracha. And Moshe Rabbeinu gives the Eibishter a bracha for the writing. For the Tagim and the Sefer Torah. So this is, of course, discussed in Chassidus. Eibishter needs Moshe Rabbeinu's brachas. And without going into the Edelkeit Shebedover, just very pashtistic, say it in very simple oisius, the letters of the Sefer Torah are the Madrega Vatsilis. That the Eibishter gave us. Weißt doch, dort in Eish Shchera Gabi Eish Lavana. The Eibishter gave us a white fire juxtaposed, a black fire juxtaposed on a white fire. This is the Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu saw, that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Eibishter a bracha, and the Eibishter gives another dimension. The Tagim, the crowns. Lines. So the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu was allowed to see Moshe Rabbeinu saw the future, and the Eibishter showed him Rabbi Akiva that it was Yeshe v'Deira shechol tag v'tag tili tilim shem halachas. On every one of these crowns, Rabbi Akiva learned mountains of halachas, mountains of halachas. So you have to understand the pshat. There's more Torah in a tag than in us. The crowns, which are simple remes, have more seichel and more oira laki than the atheist. Why? Because the less goof you have, the more neshama you have. So the tagim of the Torah, which represent the madrega of kesed, kvayochel, and kvayochel is a very important word in this case. The Eibishter gave us because Moshe gave him a bracha. And in the tagim, there's more Torah than in the atheists themselves. Now, I don't know how to read tagim. I don't know how to read anything. Yeah, we learn a pasuk chumash mit mishnah mit gemara and meitam versteht. Rabbi Akiva was deira shekol tag v'tag til shalachas. But understand this: the OCAs have two dimensions. That's how I'm explaining them to you. The tagim have one dimension, and they're written on the cloth. They're written on the piece of paper. But then you have a third madrega, and then you have also a fourth madrega. The third madrega is the nekudas. Or Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah shenegdu psula. Sefer Torah is not allowed to have nekudas. Not allowed. There's a famous story with the Tzemach Tzedek. It's a very interesting story. The Tzemach Tzedek was thinking to make a Tanya with nekudas. Just like a Chumash has nekudas, he was thinking to make a Tanya with nekudas. And he had a dream that he was in a shul, and they were laning, and they had a shaila. And they called him over to paskin the shaila. What was the shaila? That Sefer Torah had nekudas. And the halach is Sefer Torah shenagdu a psula. Sefer Torah has nekudas is possible. So he paskin in his dream that the Sefer Torah is possible. The next day, the Alter Rebbe saw him, and the Alter Rebbe says to him, "Nu Sefer Torah shenagdu is ksheira." The Alter Rebbe didn't. He never told the Alter Rebbe that he was planning to make a tanya with nekudas. He was just thinking about it. So the Alter Rebbe says to him the next day, Sefer Torah shenagdu a psula. Sefer Torah with nekudas is kosher. And the Tzemach Tzedek knew that the tanya is not allowed to have nekudas. Why? Because the tanya is Torah shebiksav. Now, why not? Who's it gonna hurt if the Sefer Torah has nekudas? And I'll tell you who it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt the Sefer Torah. When you have a Sefer Torah without nekudas, every single letter can be read in 10 different ways. According to Kabbalah, there's 10 nekudas. There's 10 spheres, there's 10 nekudas. The question is only what they are. And the question is also what the Seder is. And you should know there's a letter from the Rebbe about this. And then I remember as I was growing up, the Rebbe spoke a whole sikha about it once. The Rebbe, the Rebbe made the Tils Hashem Siddur. This is another whole controversy, another whole politics, and now another whole situation that gets very personal among certain people. The Rebbe wrote in a letter that he didn't have time to be Magia enough. The Siddur Tils Hashem, he writes up Fedish. But the Siddur Tils Hashem the Rebbe prepared. To say the Rebbe didn't do any of it is nadish. And one of the things is 10 nekudas. So obviously, Kamatz, Patach, Tzedi, Segel, Shva, Choylom, Chirik. Those are easy, yeah? Then you get 3 more, Shuruk, Malubim, and Kubitz. How do you do with those? Or Chataf. If you look on our page, there's 12 nekudas. Why? Because the last 3 are Chataf Kamatz, Chataf Patach, Chataf Segel. So what are the 10 nekudas? And what's the Seder of the 10 nekudas? Is a ganze Geschäft in Kabbalah. And the Rebbe says that he put in the Siddur one way, you think Shuruk before Kubitz, and Arizal says you have Kubitz before Shuruk. The bottom line is the Rebbe said, you leave the Siddur the way I did it. The Rebbe spoke about it, and there's also letters. But the Metzias is that the 10 nekudas correspond to the 10 spheres. Okay? Now, if you have a Sefer Torah, And under the base is a shva. That means you're limiting that base to one nikud. A sefer Torah doesn't have nekudas. Why not? Because even though you know and I know that we're going to read it one way, but the way it's written, it has many readings. You know, like you have Kri and Ksiv. Even in the Oisias, sometimes you have Kri and Ksiv. You write an Aleph, Loy mit an Aleph, and you read it Loy mit Avov. V'kayetze bezeh. Here it's even Eidaler. There's no nekudas in the Sefer Torah because the Sefer Torah can be read with all the different nekudas. Now, it doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense if you're a Pashtan. If all you understand is Pshat, and all you know how to read is the words as they're written, it doesn't make sense. But if you have any shaykhs to say, and I don't mean for little children, I mean, for the Megala Amukis. You know the Megala Amukis saw in the Sefer Torah? Every os and every nikud has numerous different readings. But the oisias are fixed. The ois is there. The base of Bereshis is there. You're not changing that. Narvadan, the base could be spelled base Yutov, and it could be spelled Chveisvas. Every os Gufa has different spellings, and of course, those of you who have shaykhs to Safras know that every os could be written in so many different ways, and there's so many different kavanas, v'chuli, v'chuli. But at least the ois is fixed. The nekudas are not in the Sefer Torah, because every os in the Sefer Torah you can read multiple nekudas. Because nekudas are even higher than tagim. If a tag has more chokhmah than an os, like Rabbi Kiva said, I'll call tag v'tag ha'yederish, tili tilim shalalochas. The nekudas, which are not written, are even higher than that. And of course, the highest madreg is what's called taimei Torah. Taimim trop. You should know there's an ancient sefer called Mat'amim, which is a whole Kabbalah. I have it. I have a copy of it. It's about 700 years old, which explains the trop api Kabbalah. They have different trop than the ones we have. It's a different nusach. But there's a sefer called Mat'amim, and on this sefer there's a sefer called Kardayim from one of the Harugi Tachvetat, Hershel Astrapala, I think, has a pirush on the Sefer Matamim. There's a whole Kabbalah about the Time Yakriya. The only place where no one even knows these things, right? I happen to know this, I'm a weirdo, and I don't know that much of it, yeah? There's a Sefer called Shefatal. Shefatal, the only reason I know about the Sefer Shefatal is because when the Alter Rebbe was arrested, he had to make a list of all the Sfarim that he owned. And the Alter Rebbe didn't even own a complete Shas. He only had a few Mesichtas. But he had the Sefer Shefatal. Shefatal is a Sefer on Kabbalah from one of the Shalosh Zaydis, from a Horowitz. And the Shefatal is after that Izov, is a Pirush on the Sefer Matamim. In the middle you have the Sefer Matamim, and all around it, it's a big Sefer in Kabbalah, very involved Sefer in Kabbalah, which I think is a Sefer of Akdomis. Point is, Nekudas is a whole world for these who are Eiskim. I'm sorry, Taimim is a whole world for those who are Eiskim Besait. The trop of the reading of the Sefer with the Nigun, with the trop, has Soides. And it's not even considered Seichel, it's considered Taimim HaTeirah. Oisias HaTeirah is Seichel HaTeirah. Tagim of the Teirah is a Hecher Esad Seichel. The Nekudas also come down into Seichel of Seid, of Pnimis HaTeirah. Trop, time this is mamish, like it's like eating stuff. It's the oinig that the Eibishter planted in his Torah. Nu God. So you and I look at a chumash, pashta, with a curved line on top of the word, and it's vayomer with a pashta. So there's the Oisias, there's the Tagim, there's the Nekudas, and there's the Taimim. We see so little of what's written there. It's staggering. It's mind blowing. Okay. Pardon me. But this is a fact. And this is, by the way, everything I'm telling you says in Chassidus. It sounds good, right? Because I'm not making it up. It says there's Maimonides Chassidus that explore Tanto. Taimim, Nekudes, Tagim, Oisias. One of the places that you know that it comes up is by Bikurim. Right? When you brought Bikurim, you put it in a basket. What's the word for basket in Chumash? Tene. Taimim, Nekudes, Eisias. Tenes, Eisias, Tenet. And it's explained in Chassidus. Taimim, Nekudes, Eisias. You're missing the Tagim. So in those Maimorim, sometimes they talk about this. But there's hard Maimorim Chassidus that are dedicated to this whole sugya of Tante. Of Taimim, Nekudes, Tagim, Eisias. So now, Rabbi say. There are 10 nekudas. And the 10 nekudas correspond to the 10 spheres. And again, there are discussions from the Rebbe. You know, I'm crazy enough. I remember the Sikh was Membei summertime. If you'll nudge me, I'll find you the Makaides. There's a letter from the Rebbe about the nekudas. And there's also a Sikha from the Rebbe about the nekudas. I even know where to find it. In the Eirat Tefillah, the Sefer called Eirat Tefillah from Abarovich, he was malak at this whole sugya. The different place where the Rebbe talks about these in Yonim. But there's 10 nekudas, and the 10 nekudas correspond to the 10 spheres. Kamatz is keser. Why? Because the word kamatz means squeezed. Keser is squeezed. Patach is chochma. Because why? Because patach means to open. Chochma means to open. Tseire is bina. I don't know why. Okay, this is the end of my yeda. Segel is chesed, and so on. And the reason I'm saying and so on is because I'm not sure which goes to which, but there were discussions in Sfarim. I mean, you look in Pardes. He has a whole shar called Shar HaNekudas, where he explains the Nekudas. The Nekudas. So the Nekudas are a big deal. So now I'm just going to give you a piece of history, yeah? There was a Yid whose name was Rab Sholem Sharabi. Rashash. He lived in Yerushalayim around the time of the Baal Shem Tov. He was a very big Makubal. And the Rashash, today I have the Siddur Rashash. It's not hard to get. When I was growing up, Siddur Rashash was a Yegara Metzias. They reprinted it. What the Rashash did was, he took all the Kavanas of that Arizal and wrote them out. So, for example, yeah? Yizgadal, a page of Kavanas. Next page, V'Yiskadish, a page of Kavanas. Turn the page. Shmei, a page of Kavanas. Rabbah, no, to say Kaddish is a whole sefer. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. Baruch, half a page of Kavanas. Because he writes out all the Kavanas Arizal in every word. I was once in 770 Rosh Hashanah, not so many years ago. And it was not the time of davening. And I see a Yid davening minche with Siddur HaRashash. Never seen anything like that in my life. And you have to turn pages, because every word, not every word has a whole page, but every word has a line or two or three. And he's davening, and so I waited for him to finish. A Yid ben Shishim Lamezong. He was not a kid. So when he finished davening, I said to him, Kvodo mevin et hakavanot. I said, you understand what you're doing? Lo. Ani ohev lestakel al hashemot. I like to look at it. But the Rashash wrote out all the kavanas. And the way the kavanas work, it's about gematrias, it's about miloi and miloi. The kavanas are all cryptic. They're all in the letters and in the words. In other words, Baruch, so you write out Beis Yud Tov. Reish is Reish Yud Shin, right? And then you have miloi, and then there's meanings behind. There's gematrias and shemis. You have to have a computer brain to daven with kavanas. I mean, you know, it says kavanas. Most people, I mean, you have to have the Rebbe's kind of brain to do this. Because to daven and to think these kavanas, it's not normal. It's the speed. And then, of course, it has meaning. It's not just as a number. It's not mathematics. It's kuf non aleph and kuf whatever. It's people who are mechavan the kavanas, metanemis, have super brains. And, of course, super neshamas. But one of the things about these, when you look at the Siddur HaRashash, you look at these kinds of svarim, is nekudas play a major role. Yeah, I'll give you an example where we have nekudas. Yom Kippur by night, you're supposed to say the first four kapitel of Tillim. And you're supposed to be mechaven in Shem Ekye, the nekudas of Shva and Chidik, I think. Right? Bris. Remember? After Maidiv of the Kippur, it says right before you go to bed, this is the first four kapitel of Tillim, and you should be mechaven, I think it's Shva and Chidik. Shem Avaya, Shva and Chidik. If you look at it, what does it mean, Shva and Chidik? Hashem's name we don't say. We say Aleph Dal Judah, we say Adnai.
1 minute left to Kriya Shema. 1 minute left to Kriya Shema.
1 minute left to Kriya Shema. This is an example what we have in our Siddur Din of Nekudas. But Mekubalim are always busy with Nekudas. Because how you pronounce a word and what's the kavana of the word are not necessarily the same thing. So b'meila zazeh, everybody knows how you pronounce Hashem's name. But Hashem's name has different nekudas. And you should know this is the difference between Shema and Shmoneh. If you remember at the beginning, the first shurim I gave you in this Maimer, in Perek Aleph, I told you that the inyan of Krishma is Mesiras Nefesh, running away from the world. And the inyan of tefillah is shuv, to bring the Eibishter into the world. This is in Api Kabbalah. It's not just Api Chassidus. It's first Api Kabbalah, then Api Chassidus. The Kabbalah is every bracha has a different, the same name, Baruch Atah Hashem, but the nikud is different. In Atachoinen, the nikud is Kometz. In Hashivenu, the nikud is Patzach. In Slachlanu, the nikud is Tzede. In Re'enu Avanyeh, the nikud is Segel. And again, if you have Sidurim or Api Kabbalah, you could look in Kisveris, Zerari. Every bracha, the Havaya, the word is the same. And you pronounce it the same. The kavanah is different. So here comes the punchline. Okay, and I talked a lot. I didn't teach you anything. I just talked. Yeah, and it's good to talk once in a while. The nekuda is as follows. Api Kabbalah, the 10 kelim have 10 different names. Right? Chesed is kel, Gevurah is Elokim, and vice versa. And of course, you guys know Chas v'Sholom, they say that the Midas have Shemes. But let's go with the derech of the Baal Shem Tov, the elokus of the Midas. The elokus, which is the Midas HaChesed, is Kale. The elokus of the Midas HaGvura is Elokim. The elokus of the Midas, and we're talking here about elokus of Kalim. The Oyer is Havaya. Havaya is one, Ein Sof. The glue between the Oyer and the Kali is the Nikud. The Nekudes are the hitstairus of the spheres in Oyer. The Oyer is Pashut. And I'm using the Isis of the Padis, which are Graba Isis. If you could imagine Oyer Pashut going into a colored Keli and acquiring that Gavdim. And again, you look in the Padis, there's something called Shara Gavdim. He talks about colors. And the Gavdim mean the Kelim. It's a mushal. And the Nimshal is the Midas of Atzilas. The Memutze that brings the Oyer Pashut to the Keli, the Oyer Pashut is called Havaya. The Elokus of the Kalim with the 10 spheres are 10 different names. There's Ekya and there's Kael and the Havaya B'Nikud Elokim. Kael, Elokim, Havaya, Havaya Tzvokes, Elokim Tzvokes. Dorten Shakai, Kael Choy and Adnai. The Oid is always the same, Havaya. The glue between the Ed and the Kael is called the Nekudas, Nikud. The Nekudas don't really exist. Because the Nekudas are the potential within the Oid to become a certain government. But this is the Kavan. It's how it works. Api Kabbalah. Yidden who know what they're doing. When they daven and they say Baruch Atah Hashem and Atachoinen, the mechaven komets. When they daven, they say Baruch Atah Hashem, that the Eibishter forgive us for our Vedas, are mechaven patach, because they understand the connection between das and kesed and tshuva and chochma and so forth. And this is all part of Yedim Lechaven B'Shem, knowing the nekudas. And Api Kabbalah, this is called shuv. Every bracha you bring Elokus into the world. This is what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. How does it fit that a Yid is standing in Shmoneh, he's standing in front of the Eibishter, Avda Kamimora, bitl betachlis, and he's asking the Eibishter for breakfast, for the fuah, for panos. I mean, the two most gashmiisdik brachas are the Fo'enu Baruch Aleinu. All the other brachas are ruchniisdik. Yeah, but pashat for panosa. What's the teretz? When you bring the Eibush into your parnasa, you just brought him into this world. It's not about you and your parnasa. It's about being l'mreifech ha'elim, mevarech hashanim. You mishatned the world begashmias, which is like doesn't get like Likutei Zachal. What's going to be its chayim? When your yid learns Torah, it doesn't change the physical world. When the yid does the mitzvah, it doesn't change the physical world. When the yid davens, he changes the physical world because through his davening there's a refuah and there's a bracha for parnasa. And in Kabbalah language, it's your mamshach oir into keli. Krishma is Mesiras Nefesh. You're running up to the Eibishter. That's the whole interface in Krishma and Tefillah, and the whole inyan that Terasem Nasis Mechoyev and Krishma Pater and Tefillah. All these things tied together. I talked about this in the beginning when I started this series of Shiurim. And there's a Shoresh Mitzvas Hatefilla. Okay, what I'm just saying today is the Taich Nekudes is it's the status within Oyer. The idea that Oyer in Saf there's the possibility to become Kesed, that's comets, and so on. And we'll continue this tomorrow morning. Now, I have bad news. I sent you a sheet with 10 questions. The only one you can answer is the first. So, I'm Mamshach Chaim Morgan and Mitzvah. Okay? You can go down.
I
go ahead.
Question.
Sure.
I didn't get, why is Taimim HaMikvah higher than the Kudus?
Well, the reason you're asking a question is because the ois is written in 2 dimensions. The tag is written in 1 dimension. Side the Nekudas and side the Taimim are not written on the page, so why are we making one higher than the next? My first answer to you is, I don't know. That's how it is Alpi Kabbalah. And that's the correct answer. But my second answer to you is, whenever you read the Mitzvas Hatefilla, you have to say Nekudas. But whenever you read the Mitzvas Hatefilla, you don't have to say it up. You cannot say Baruch without a Kometz and a Shuruk and a Shva. It's impossible. But you don't have to say it with a Pashto. So the Nikud is Helim in the Ksiv. It's not Helim in the Kri. You cannot read a word without Nekudas. It's impossible. Today in America, they have a word called phonetics. If you're going to say a consonant, it's going to have a vowel. Even it's a Shva. Right? In the world, they're going to say there's no such vowel as But in Teda, there is. There's a Shva no. A Shva noch. It's a sound. But the Taimim, you don't even have to say. So the Taimim are not only Helim from the Ksiv, they're Helim even from the Kri. And that's why they're considered higher.
Fine. And another thing is why don't we learn on Kavanas Harizal?
Why don't we Kavanas Harizal? Because we're in our pampers. Because we're in our pampers. One of the things about Lubavitchers, it's a funny thing about Lubavitchers, Mendy. We don't like to lie to ourselves. It's not part of our culture. Fantasy, not a mainstay of Chabad. There's a lot of groups, believe me, that are fantastic fantasizers. Meleptin Dimian. Do you know what this is? The Rebbe was Mechavan Kavanas Harizal. Rebbe Levi could Mechavan Kavanas Harizal. This is... There are so many people who are doing this stuff today, and they don't have a clue how much they don't have a clue what they're doing. I'm telling you the truth. To be Mekavan the Kavanas, you have to have a computer brain. The Rebbe is Mekavan the Kavanas. Because it's super fast, and it's super deep, and super meaningful. So all the people, either they spend forever on one word, Baruch, which is nice, but if that's the case, Tracht Wort Chassid is better. It touches your heart. Yeah. Or they don't have a clue what they're doing. They just look at it. It makes them feel good. I know so many people that love Kabbalah. They don't know nothing. They know how to do mathematics, gematriyos. They don't have a clue. And it's just not in our culture, man. We're just bad liars in this prat. In other ways, basically. But it's not part of the Chabad culture to make believe what we aren't what we are. We are what we aren't. We learn a little Chassidus, and we understand a little bit of Seder Satera. Right? And Hayem Yem, Chav Chasiv, and the Ikirid Hab Machush and Hayid Natevetan. That's really what it comes down to.
Shkayach.
Zugesund. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Now, Rabbi Paltiel, can I also ask a Kshaila?
By all means.
I once think I don't remember which year, maybe it was like Erev Chodesh Mayim Sicha, and the Rebbe spoke about the Shkubas and Truk, that he made a mistake, that shouldn't other people for making a mistake, because he himself made a mistake.
Tov Shin Membeis summer.
Erev Chodesh.
Yeah.
So he said he put in the Siddur, it wasn't right. He put in the Siddur first, I don't remember which, and then that. Right. And it was supposed to be Farkan.
So wait, so after the Fabrengen...
So why that happened? I see they didn't print it in the Siddur that way.
Because apparently it wasn't a mistake. The Rebbe was asked after the Fabrengen, there's a whole hemshech. So let's fix it. No, don't touch. The Rebbe's a greis.
The Rebbe said don't touch?
The Rebbe said don't touch. And if you want to read about it, Mendele, you have Rabbi Alperovich's Svarim Mitzvas Hatefilla?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, your father has it. The first Krach came out 25 years ago, 30 years ago. But you can for sure get it. You can for sure get it. I know, I saw it there myself. Could be even have it in Hebrew books. In Krach Aleph, either in the Sefer or in the Hisafis, he has this whole parasha. And you could look, you'll see. The Rebbe said, I made a mistake. And then afterwards, the Rebbe said, don't change it. Because da tut sich Sachen, this Dvarim, the Rebbe didn't make a mistake. You understand? Dvarim ha'imdim beru me'shaleilam.
And he said, we find that the Yisrael made a mistake, like Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah. And then after the Fabrengen, the Rebbe didn't let him fix it.
Take.
The Rebbe's a greis. The Rebbe's a greis.
The Rebbe just wanted a Zaira that people should slam other people for making mistakes.
Right. That was very important for us to hear. But of alle Yidden gesagt, the Rebbe's mistakes. The Rebbe didn't let him change it. I remember the parsha. I was younger than you are now, but I was 16. I was 17. Came out.
What was the mistake? Oh,
That
mistake.
the shuruk for the kubitz, because it decided that Netzach and Hoid, and then I put him the wrong order. Hoid before Netzach. Go take a look at that film. You know what? Maybe I'll put them up. I mean, it's today with a PDF. It's nothing. I can copy it and put it up for you. Okay, I'll let you.
Kubitz before shuruk.
Yes, it should be the other way.
Kubitz before shuruk, so it should be the opposite.
Yeah. I made a mistake. I said, Kumal Lapel, he didn't let him change it.
Whatever, I mean?
You want to look at time, Mendel?
Yeah, if he wants.
I should go to your room. I asked him, he wants.
Gewaldig.
Okay. Good
And
morning.
Mendel's line in Ellie's waiting for you in his room.